What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Today on the show, we're going to preview this Arkansas-Alabama game. It's a big one down in Tuscaloosa. We're also going to talk a little bit about Arkansas's win over Northern Iowa last night. And Charlie Potter from BamaOnline is going to join us. He's a beat writer over there. And, of course, Curtis Wilkerson is going to come on and talk a little bit about Razorback hoops, all that and more on Hog Sports Live. All right, everybody, thanks for coming along for your Arkansas versus Alabama primer. Before we get started, I want to remind you there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. Always tune in on Facebook Live where we stream the show live. Be sure to follow the page and get notifications so you're notified anytime we upload new videos. Same deal on YouTube. Hit the notifications bell and also subscribe to the channel. And Apple Podcasts. We haven't had that 5-star review from you yet. You've been meaning to do the 5-star review on Apple Podcasts because you like the show. You want to show others that you like it. You want to tell them what to expect. So go ahead and take a moment to do that now or after the show. Also available on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, anywhere else you can think of to find your favorite podcast. Hog Sports is just $1 right now for your first month. HawgSports.com. And sign up for our free breaking news text alerts and our daily newsletter. You can go to the top right of the page and navigate through how to do all that. It's pretty simple stuff. Pretty self-explanatory. All right. Arkansas beating Northern Iowa 93-80. We're going to have Curtis on at the end of the show to talk a little bit more, not the quiet end, we're going to take your questions at the end, but after we have on Charlie Potter, to talk a little bit more about what he saw. He was there at Bud Walton Arena. He's got a nice breakdown on several different aspects of the game. Obviously, J.D. Notae almost had a triple-double with 9 assists, 8 rebounds, and 17 points, even though he was only 1 of 7 from the floor. We'll talk to him a little bit about that. Several guys had good games. Notae, Jalen Williams. Get some more insight on that and where Arkansas is headed also after this. College football playoff rankings came out since we've done the last show. Arkansas is 21st, I believe. 21st. They went from 25th to 21st, so this is the highest they've ever been ranked in the college football playoffs since they've been doing it in 2014 for obvious reasons. Arkansas hasn't been that good. So one spot ahead, UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio, where Jeff Traylor has them 10-0. Jeff Traylor's come up for several possible coaching jobs. Arkansas right now is 22nd in the CBS Sports ranking. They rank all 130 teams, so Arkansas is 22nd there. Of course, they're 21st in the AP, 22 in the coaches poll. So pretty universally ranked everywhere except for the ridiculous ESPN FPI. Football power rankings for 24/7 Sports are out. Again, this isn't based on rankings. This is basically based on who's got the best team, period. Who would win in a fight. Vanderbilt 14, Florida 13, South Carolina 12, Missouri 11, LSU 10, Tennessee 9. I think LSU should be a little bit higher. I think they've been battling, even though they're 4-6, and that's kind of what this is based on, how things are going right now. Tennessee 9, Auburn 8, Kentucky 7, Mississippi State 6, Arkansas 5 at 7-3, and Texas A&M 4 at 7-3. Even though Arkansas beat them on a neutral site, that Alabama win for Texas A&M weighs pretty heavily, and the Auburn win. Ole Miss at 3, Alabama at 2, Georgia at 1. Can't really argue with the top 3 there. Again, it's kind of crazy to think where would Arkansas be right now if they'd made that 2-point conversion. So Arkansas right now is a 20.5-point underdog at Alabama. They have not won in Tuscaloosa since 2003. They haven't beaten Alabama since 2006. That 2003 game was a pretty strong comeback. I thought they were going to replicate the 2003 game in 2005. But, 2006, when Darren McFadden and those guys went 2007, sorry. Thought they were going to replicate that game in 2007 when, because they raced back in 2003 for the win. And in 2007, Darren McFadden got hurt on that last drive. I guess he got his bell rung, and they decided to keep him out, and they weren't able to ice the game, and Alabama won. Chris Hummer, one of our experts at 24/7 Sports, he's got Arkansas at plus 20.5. He picks Arkansas to cover that, Alabama to win 38-20, and Brad Crawford picks Alabama 42-17. I'm leaning pretty close to what the betting line is right now, somewhere around 40-21. I think Arkansas can give them a game. I don't think this is an invincible Alabama team. I just think that they're better, and they're Alabama, and they're at home. So all those things play a big role. Todd McShay came out with his most recent top 32 for the NFL draft. He's got Treylon Burks at number 24. 24 nationally. I've said it before. If I needed a wide receiver, it would be really hard for me to pass up Treylon Burks. And it's I mean, I get the numbers aspect. I mean, he's still got really, really strong numbers. But he was left off the Biletnikoff Award watch list, or excuse me, the semifinalist. And we talked about that just recently. But obviously that's not an award that is given out to the best receiver. It's just the guy with the best stats. And, you know, I guess if you want that, then go to Mississippi State where you're going to catch a million balls. Now, from a current wide receiver to a future one, Isaiah Satania was presented with his All-America Bowl jersey. So it's him, Miles Rouser, Andrew Chambly, and Eli Stein, the deep snapper. So 4 players right now are going to play in that game. I can't remember when they've had that many players playing in the All-America Bowl game. So that's definitely notable. Grant Morgan is on the Burlsworth Trophy again. He finished just shy. He was a finalist last year. I think an offensive lineman, for Pitt, won it last year. So hopefully Grant will get it this year. He's certainly deserving of it. We'll see how things shake out with that. But Grant's certainly deserving. It's an interesting game coming up here. I mean, like, how do you attack Alabama? Do you do similar to what LSU did? I think personally you probably come at these guys with more blitzing, more rolling the dice. You're trying to win. And I've said the Houston Nutt quote over and over again. The ball doesn't bounce straight up and down. You really have to capitalize when you're given opportunities against Alabama, because that's something that Alabama has always done. I think Arkansas can come out there and play them tight early, but I just think when I think of Alabama, I think of the slow death. And that's kind of how Alabama beats you. They just, you battle, and then eventually third quarter comes around and they start putting it on you. They start capitalizing on a mistake that you made here and there, or, just wear you out. And that's typically what Alabama has been. I think I'm with most people. I don't know that Alabama is the Alabama that we've seen before. I don't know that they're quite that level. They're still really, really good. And it's very like Alabama in a game like this to, come out and just prove everybody wrong. Another thing that I don't like about this game for Arkansas is they were involved in a overtime battle, 4 quarters plus, against LSU on the road in Baton Rouge. And what was Alabama doing last week? Taking it easy. New Mexico State, over at halftime, pull all the starters out. Get a chance to get rested. They're going to get some of their players back, their offensive linemen. Again, we'll talk to Charlie Potter here in a little bit about that. Flipping over to basketball again real quick, because we're going to get to Curtis Wilkerson next after we talk a little bit more about Razorback football. But what's your starting 5? Who do you put out there as a starting 5? I mean, Jalen Williams has got to be out there. Devo Davis, Note. I mean, Chris Likes, maybe he's the spark plug off the bench kind of guy. It wouldn't surprise me, since Devo got ejected from this one, next week or on Monday, I guess, to see maybe Likes start. They certainly pulled away with him in the starting lineup. I mean, then you got Stanley Amude, who does some good things. I don't think he had a great game. Tony, I mean, you got to have him in the lineup. He does so many things. Just so many pieces with these guys that I don't know how you sort it out. Like, how do you define a role for somebody? And there are times where they came off 284 passes the week before. I'm not sure how many they had in this one. I don't know if that's been released yet, but there were times where it just felt like, it felt like a little bit more ISO. But I mean, Note's got to start. Tony Williams has got to start. Devo's got to start. I mean, and you start talking about some other guys who are really – I think Trey Wade has a lot of potential. Jackson Robinson's got really, really soft shot. We didn't see him in the last game. We didn't see KK Robinson, I don't believe. I don't think KK got in the game. I don't remember what Musselman said on that. But he did indicate that he was going to play fewer players. He played a Note. The guys who got significant minutes were Note, Davis, Tony, Williams. Hamude, and Likes. Wade played a little. Vanover played a little. That's how it shook out. Okay. I was stalling a little bit because I told Charlie Potter we'd get to him a little bit later, but I'm going to go ahead and try to get him on the horn. For those of you Alabama fans listening out there, if you're not familiar with BamaOnline, then you're probably not an Alabama fan because it has been established since 1996. I've known several of the guys over there, Tim Watts, for a number of years. They do a great job over there covering Alabama. It's BamaOnline. And you can follow Charlie at Charlie_Potter on Twitter. And he does a mix of free articles and VIP articles for them over there at BamaOnline. See if he minds me getting to him 2 minutes early.
Hey, Trey, how's it going?
Hey, Charlie, coming to you 2 minutes early. I hope you don't mind on that. How you doing, man?
No problem. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, I was just introducing you to everybody. How long have you been at this, Charlie? How long have you been covering Crimson Tide?
My first season as a professional was 2014. I did it 1 year as a student, but got this gig out of college and been doing it ever since. It's
a good gig to have with Tim Watts and the gang over there. Like I was saying a minute ago, I've known Tim for a really long time, and back at when we were at Rivals together, and now of course at 24/7. So Charlie, I just wanted to ask you. We're not going to stray too far from the 5 burning questions type of deal that the behind enemy lines, I should say, that we do with writers each week, but. I was wondering if you could just tell us, in general, your thoughts on this matchup, what you see out of Arkansas and what Alabama is this year compared to maybe where they've been recently.
Yeah, well, for Alabama, they've had to replace a lot, and I know every team goes through attrition and things like that during the offseason, but, just offensively alone, Alabama had to replace a slew of first-round draft picks. Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Najee Harris, Alex Leatherwood. Landon Dickerson was a early pick on day 2. He didn't last long in the second round. So that's just a ton of production. That doesn't include guys like Deontay Brown, Miller Forrestall, several that have played a lot of football here. So Alabama had to replace a lot offensively. I don't really think offensively is a big issue outside of the offensive line, but when you lose 3 starters there, that's been a problem. So the offensive line has been a work in progress all season. And defensively, going into the year, it was the opposite. They didn't lose that much. You had Patrick Surtain, the star cornerback, and Dylan Moses and Christian Barmore, really the only players they lost on that defense. And they got everybody back. They had some veterans kind of step up into bigger roles. You had Henry Toa from Tennessee to that defense, and you're thinking, well, wow, this is going to be a much improved defense. And it took some time, but we're starting to see that. I think they've played well of late. They've been really good at stopping the run this season. And I think, going up against Arkansas, that's something that Arkansas likes to do is run the football. I think they're second in the SEC just in terms of rushing yards per game. And Alabama's run defense is second in the SEC behind Georgia, and everybody knows how good they are in that department. So I think that for me is going to be the key thing there is just, how this run defense, which has improved and looked really good, plays really these next 2 or 3 weeks against teams that like to run the football. That'll be the real test because they've played some teams that don't, or maybe aren't as well versed as, say, in Arkansas. So I think that and really just the line of scrimmage, keeping KJ Jefferson contained and making him beat him with his arm and things like that. So Arkansas this is a matchup now. Like I said in the post and what we talked about. Alabama hasn't had a great week of practice. Are they taking this game seriously? They should, because with a win, they can win the SEC West. But it's just been that kind of team that, with so many players leaving, especially the leaders on the offensive side of the ball, it's a young group, and it's just kind of, you wait and see and engage Nick Saban's mood at the press conferences just to see how the week of practice is going.
Charlie Potter joining us again. You can follow him at Charlie Potter, at Charlie_Potter. He is a beat writer over at BamaOnline. Now, Charlie, I agree with you. And when Alabama lost Dalcourt, I believe that's how you say his name, Dalcourt, when they lost him against LSU, you could see that was just, that was a big blow with the way that, LSU was attacking them and blitzing so heavily and stuff. And there were a lot of things, I think, in that game where Alabama, made uncharacteristic mistakes. There was an very early drop in the game. I think maybe a tight end dropped something over the middle. He was looking to run after the catch before he caught the ball. But there seemed like there was a lot of things like that Alabama did that really hurt them. It wasn't all LSU. But I wanted to get into these injuries. What is the latest with the injury situation, and could we see some of these guys coming back for Arkansas?
Yeah, the guys that are dealing with stuff now, of course, they have a couple of guys that have been on the shelf for a while, and Chris Allen and Jason McClellan, and those are two big pieces on both sides of the football, linebacker and running back. But, Dalcourt, he suffered that injury in the LSU game pretty early, and then they kind of had to shift things around in the offensive line. He didn't play against New Mexico State, even though he dressed out. And, Nick Saban, said he was going to practice on Tuesday because they kind of did just a walkthrough on Monday, and he has practiced every day this week, which, hasn't been a ton, but that's a good sign for him. And same can be said for Javion Cohen, the left guard. He didn't play against New Mexico State. He's dealing with a wrist issue. He had that repaired, and it sounds like he's going to be good to go. Nick Saban said he's fine after the game on Saturday, and he's also practiced every day this week. So it looks like they could get some continuity back up front on the offensive line. That being said, this isn't really injury related, but they could start a new right tackle, and maybe not a new right tackle. He started last week with them moving things around with two starters out, but Damian George could be the guy there at right tackle replacing Chris Owens, because Owens has kind of been splitting duties between two positions and not getting a ton of reps at either. So we'll see how that goes. That's something I'll be looking for in pregame warm-ups, including just how much Dalcourt and Cohen are doing if they're good to go. But a couple of guys were injured in the New Mexico State game. Wendell Williams, who was Alabama's number 3 running back going into the season and was elevated to the number 2 role after Jason McClellan's injury. He suffered a knee injury that had to have surgery, so he's probably going to miss the rest of the season, if not just a bunch of time. And then wide receiver JoJo Earl, a true freshman who has kind of been their number 4 receiver and then their primary punt returner. He suffered an injury in the game as well, and he's not going to play this week. So those are really the big ones. Outside of that, Alabama's pretty healthy, or at least as healthy as you can be going into the 11th game of the season.
Charlie, what are your thoughts on Bryce? I mean, is he like, does he remind you of Tua? I mean, like, who does he remind you of, and what are some of the strengths and weaknesses we've seen from Bryce Young as the season has progressed?
Yeah, I can see a little bit of Tua in his game. Tua kind of had that gunslinger mentality. He was trying to make a Superman play on every play. And the thing that Tua had, too, is Tua had a ton of just talented receivers. Everybody knows about that receiving core Alabama had the last couple of years. The 4 players that all went in the first round of the NFL draft, top 15 picks. So that was beneficial for Tua. And Bryce doesn't have that luxury. I mean, John Mechie and Jamison Williams have played great this season. Mechie's gotten healthier over the course of the season. But beyond that, there's some inconsistencies. So that's one thing I think that Tua had at his disposal. But I think I see a little bit of Mac and Tua in Bryce. He doesn't necessarily want to run the ball. That's kind of something he's taught himself not to do, is just to keep his eyes down the field and try to make a play or get the ball to one of his playmakers, because he is a smaller guy. He takes care of himself as much as he can. That's been a little difficult with the way the offensive line is played, but he can extend plays. He can escape pressure and find an open receiver, and he has shown here of late where he's tucked the ball and ran and picked up the first down, and that's been really big for this offense, I think, with the issues they have had up front. But he's accurate. He's efficient. He's effective. He's made good decisions. He's only turned the ball over through the air 3 times. He's had a couple of fumbles, but that's whenever he's gotten blown up by a quick pass rush. But I think he's had a great season. I mean, there's a reason he's in the discussion for the Heisman Trophy. He's thrown for 33 touchdowns. He's completed 71% of his passes. He's just been really efficient and effective back there. And I think everyone thought or knew he was talented, being the former number one player in the country. But we just hadn't seen it. Last year with the COVID year and Alabama only playing SEC teams, and then of course only Power 5 teams in the postseason. We didn't really see a lot of the backup quarterback. Mac Jones played a lot because of the competition they were facing. So we didn't really know what to expect from Bryce Young. But I think now that he has 10 games of work under his belt, he's probably exceeded a lot of people's expectations.
And Charlie, I want to get you out with this. Just real quick, your prediction on the game. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they didn't have a great practice yesterday. And if anybody watched Nick Saban's press conference, you could tell by his mood. It was short. He was pretty. He just wasn't in a great mood, and he's talked about the poor me's and things like that. People feeling sorry for themselves, but I mean, everybody is not feeling great at this time of year. It's football, that happens. But I think I would have probably thought Alabama wins comfortably. Even more so before this week, just because, like I said, I mean, this is a chance for them to win the West. They can lock things up. They can go into the Iron Bowl with a little less stress, because anytime Alabama travels to Auburn, with an Auburn team that's showing signs of life, that usually is not a great experience for them. But I think with it being senior day, I think some of these leaders, these veterans on the team are going to kind of right that a little bit. And I still think Alabama, wins big, but maybe not as big as I initially anticipated. I had the score at 45-21. I just think with an opportunity to get back to Atlanta for some of these seniors playing their last game at Bryant-Denny, and for this defense to do what Will Anderson has preached, because I talk about leadership. He's a sophomore, but really turned into the number one leader on this team. He wants them to play at a championship level, and it doesn't sound like they've been doing that at practice. But I think they want to kind of finish this regular season strong and put themselves in a position to get back to the playoff, and that starts Saturday. So, long story short, I still think Alabama wins, but judging of the way they performed this week, it might be a little bit more interesting. All
right, Charlie, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for coming on with us, and I guess we'll see what happens on Saturday.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Charlie. All right, everybody, that's Charlie Potter. Again, you can follow him at Charlie_Potter for the Alabama fan listening out there. Does a great job over there for BamaOnline. Okay, next up I want to bring in my man Curtis Wilkerson. Curtis is going to talk to us a little bit about Razorback basketball. So last night he did a stand-up inside Bud Walton Arena, and we didn't do the Hog Hoops live show today because we've got this show, and he did the stand-up. So we kind of let him do that and then mix him in here. So obviously we'll get a little bit more regular with that Hog Hoops live show coming up here, especially when football season winds down.
Hey,
Curtis,
Trey.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, Arkansas football is ranked. We're knee-deep in college basketball season. I mean, for a guy like me, I don't know I could be doing much better.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's at, and it's probably been pretty fun covering this recruiting class, as Arkansas has signed all 5 of their commitments, and it's the number 2 ranked recruiting class in the country. So, Curtis, you were at the game last night. I'll be sure to link your article, or your stand up from last night, just your thoughts. But for those who are lazy and just want to watch it right here, what did you think about the game on Saturday?
Well, yeah, last night I was kind of expecting something like that. I don't know if I was expecting Arkansas to give up 17 3-pointers. That's a little absurd, but this is a Northern Iowa team that I was pretty bullish about throughout the preseason. Just one of those mid-majors that always sneaks up on these Power 5 programs early in the season. One of those games that Arkansas will schedule that's going to look a lot better, I think, in March on the resume than maybe it does right now. But I thought it was a really good performance aside from giving up 17 3-pointers. I mean, had a pretty good breakout game offensively, 93 points, 6 guys in double figures, 21 assists to 5 turnovers. Those are all really good signs that a team's starting to gel and click and get comfortable in their roles. And really, they did a lot of good things defensively, aside from defending the perimeter. So, we talked to Eric Musselman after the game, and he said he thinks that they're actually probably a little bit ahead of where they were this time last year. And it's a good thing going into what's going to be a pretty challenging event at the Hall of Fame Classic next week.
Curtis Wilkerson joining us again. You can follow him at @KurtWilkerson_. Does a lot of good free content, but his VIP stuff is fantastic, and you'll need a VIP membership. He does player grades and things like that after every game, so does a great job over there. Curtis, we'll maybe get into a little bit of football, but I really want to focus on basketball right now. And the hardest thing for me to figure out when I look at this team is, and we're exchanging texts about it during the game, what is the starting five? If you had to put together a starting five, what you think will be the starting five throughout the meat of the schedule, what is it?
Yeah, I was listening to you a few minutes ago, and I think you're spot on with that first 4, with J.D. Note, Devo Davis, Audice Toney, and Jalen Williams. Those 4 guys have to be in there. I mean, I think the guys that are kind of firing on all cylinders, working well together, and it's really about that 5th spot. And I thought it was really unique that they put Connor Vanover in there in that Gardner-Webb game, and it worked out there. But then last night, we kind of saw the other side of the coin, what could happen there. And I don't think it was necessarily that Connor didn't play well. So much as when you have him and Jalen Williams, and obviously Jalen's a little more versatile, but those 2 guys can only guard so many different types of players. And if you're on the floor together at the same time, chances are you're going to wind up having a bad matchup pretty quickly, and we saw that. So, if I had to guess who I think it will ultimately be, probably Stanley Amude, and he's still working out some kinks. Looks like he's pressing a little bit offensively. I mean, missing layups. This is a guy that scored 1,500 points in his career. You would imagine those are going to start to fall as he gets a little bit more comfortable. But I got to tell you, I really like him off the bench with Chris Likes. I mean, that's a lot of pop and firepower in the second unit. So to think outside the box a little bit, I wouldn't mind seeing maybe a Trey Wade get a shot in there. It's a guy that's versatile. He can switch and do a lot of things for you defensively. He's a ball mover. He doesn't turn it over. Could be interesting, a veteran guy who's played a lot. Or maybe a Jackson Robinson. You think about, a lot of people say that the starting lineup doesn't matter so much as the lineup that closes, but Arkansas consistently gets off to slow starts. So, maybe a guy like Jackson Robinson who can space the floor and knock down an early 3 or 2 and get you going a little bit.
He's got a really silky stroke.
He does. It's pretty.
Yeah, it's like, it reminds me a little bit of oh my gosh, I'm spacing on his name. Anyway, Isaiah Joe.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of similarities there with the length and the release and things like that. I think it'd be interesting. So like I said, I think it probably would wind up being a Amude, but I wouldn't mind seeing them give a guy like Wade or Jackson Robinson a shot and just see what they can do in that position.
Yeah, I was telling you last night also, I think if like the whole team got in a fight in a battle royal, I think Trey Wade, I think he would come out. He would be my pick.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid bet right there. He's a physically imposing dude, no doubt about it.
Yeah. All right, Curtis. So I want to switch you over real quick to football. Arkansas, Alabama this weekend. You always come out with the 5 burning questions and the keys to victory, and that is a VIP article, so we don't want to go into it too much with the 5 burning questions. But they are: can the Hogs win? Hang with the Tide in the trenches? Will the Hogs get back to their running ways? Can Arkansas slow down Bryce Young? What's left in Odom's bag of tricks? And has Arkansas closed the gap? And you do a nice breakdown on every single one of these. And, of course, with the keys to victory, it's always penalties, turnovers, special teams, and injuries, how that plays a role. And then one bonus one, and I think you nailed it on this one, a little luck. Let's talk about that last one.
Sure. I always kind of look at, the side by side with different stats and things like that. And I had already typed out a full thing about, Arkansas's third down defense against Alabama, who I think has the highest third down conversion rate in the country. But, man, I feel like it's either that or, get off to a fast start or, something. Even though it's different every week, it's been kind of the same few different things. So thinking outside the box a little bit, it's probably not what a lot of people want to hear, but I think it's just true. Both of these teams bring their A game on Saturday. Alabama's probably going to win. So, I think for Arkansas, it's about getting a little bit of luck, maybe a call that goes your way, or a mistake that Alabama makes. Yeah, hey, but to win a game in Tuscaloosa, you're going to have something like that, right? The ball's going to have to bounce your way, and when it does, Arkansas has got to take advantage of that. And I think that's just what it takes. It takes a special kind of performance to pull off an upset that Arkansas is trying to do. So it might need a little bit extra, a little shot in the arm. Don't know what that's going to be, but we'll see.
I can remember, Ole Miss when they beat Alabama those 2 years. Like one game, I think they won the turnover battle 5-0 or something, and Alabama still almost beat them.
Right.
But
exactly.
it's extremely tough to win there. It's a great venue. They really love their metal in Tuscaloosa. There'll be a lot of heavy metal piping through at that game. But so I'll just get you out with this, Curtis. What do you think? How do you see it playing out? You got a score prediction?
I haven't come up with a score prediction yet, but I hope that, and what I would like to see is let's have Arkansas make this a game. You saw Florida take them down to the wire. Tennessee wound up, I think that score wound up being pretty lopsided, but it was a 7-point game, I think, going into the fourth quarter. It seems like a few times here lately in this series, things have been over by the end of the first quarter or halftime. Would just really like to see Arkansas take the game into the second half, challenge Alabama, push them. Don't put them in a situation where they get to clear the bench and bring in the second and third string. Make it a game, and I think Arkansas has turned the corner to the point where they can be competitive in an atmosphere like this. So obviously, I think Alabama's probably going to come out on top. I'm probably going to be right around that cover line, of 2 to 3 scores, but would really like to and expect to see Arkansas take this game into the second half and be competitive. I'm
kind of with you, Curtis. I would hope that Arkansas can kind of keep it competitive a little, for a half or so, and you never know what happens if you can do that. You start believing in yourself and everything. But Alabama, as I said earlier, is the king of the slow death, and I'm kind of thinking maybe a little bit more like, I don't know, 41-20 Alabama, something like that. Again, pretty close to – I think Vegas has it pretty close to right now. All right, Curtis.
Yep.
All right, man.
All right.
Appreciate you. I didn't talk over you too much or anything, did I?
Nope.
All right. I had a critique that they love the show, but please stop talking over your guests.
Really? No, I didn't notice it.
I'm bringing one negative comment to the show each week.
I like that. I like it.
I did take it. I did heed the advice, and I appreciate that because I didn't notice it, and you never notice if you're doing something like that. So we'll try to not talk over people, especially Curtis Wilkerson. All right, brother. Appreciate you.
Hey, anytime.
All right, Kurt Wilkerson. Again, you can follow him at @KurtWilkerson_. If you love Razorback basketball, and I know you do, then you need to follow Curtis Wilkerson. I mean, again, I said this before, but we're reaching to a point where Curtis, when it comes to Razorback basketball, is the guy that you need to go to for recruiting coverage, for breakdown, analysis, previews, all that kind of stuff. Again, at @KurtWilkerson_. Okay, we're going to get to your questions now. Before we do that, one more time, how to watch and listen. Be sure to tune in on Facebook Live, where we run the show every Monday afternoon and every Thursday late morning for the primer. And you can subscribe to that channel, follow whatever, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Hit the notifications bell so you're notified anytime we upload new videos. Now's a great time to give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, also available on Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of 5-star podcast. HawgSports is $1 right now for your first month, HawgSports.com. Just go to the website. You'll see the banner ad. There's no promo code or anything like that. Just sign up for the site. You'll be glad you did. All right. Now to the questions. How you doing, Jerry? Please don't chew on that. Got Jerry Jack in here with me. You and I came to play last night. Glad we pulled it out. Go Hogs, beat Bama. I mean, it was crazy how many threes they were hitting. I mean, it was just they were unconscious for 17 threes. Insane. Adrian Jones says, you and I lived by the three and ultimately died by the three. They did. I mean, Arkansas put together that nice running, like 11-0 or something right there at the end. That's when the best team usually comes out. Martin Griffith says, what's the status of Jalen Williams? I noticed he was back on the bench last night. I don't know, but Jalen's got to quit falling flat on his back over and over again. He's got a back issue, but he played well last night. I don't know if he was on the bench. What did he finish with? Jalen Williams finished with 11 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds in 24 minutes. So he didn't play the full amount of minutes you would normally expect. Colton Smith says, hey, Trey, why is it we never get a late hit out of bounds? It was clear twice with KJ and Burks getting shoved after a run, and Burks twisted his ankle after one of them. Thankfully, Burks wasn't injured. I don't know. I think they maybe were pretty close. And I'm going to say this too because I've been very critical of the referees, but I went back and watched the play with Trey Knox where I thought he got a first down, and I think the refs got it right. I think they got it right, and I was critical of that, but when you slow it down, very slow, you can see the top of Trey Knox's head hits, and the ball is short of the line, and you know any other part of your body that hits, you're down. So they did actually get that right. They didn't get everything right, but they did get that right. Colton Smith says, hey, Trey, why is it we never get – oh, I just read that. I do that sometimes. There have been times, though, where I felt like a late hit was warranted and they didn't do it. I mean, obviously the Mississippi State game where they're shoving Traylon Burks out of bounds. I mean, and there have been a couple other instances here and there. There was one where KJ was hit out of bounds right at the marker, which you always call that because that's a very dangerous spot. I don't remember if Burks was hit out of bounds, though, on that one where he went into the net. Ethan Malone says he came back late in the game. I think he's fine. Yeah, he's had a back issue, you know, and he keeps falling down on his back. I mean, like flat on his back. Kevin Medlin says, do we lead the nation in false starts? I don't know if they lead the nation, but it's definitely been a problem, and it's something they've got to figure out. I mean, there's some issues that you have with penalties, as Pittman was saying, that are just going to happen. Holding calls are going to happen from time to time, but false starts, that's got to stop. Chris Light says, yes, may not beat Alabama, but great team and maybe 8-4 in a bowl. Cody Stout says, showing love from Clovis, California. Sam Kerr says, they're human. Just go hit them. We have nothing to lose. Just go in it to win it and see what happens. Absolutely. If you go in there not thinking you can win it, then you've already lost. There's no question about that. Adrian Jones says Alabama is beatable if Arkansas plays mistake-free game. I agree with you, Adrian. I think that Alabama can be beaten. They've shown that they can be beaten. They lost to Texas A&M now, and LSU played them very tough. We'll see how it plays out. Arkansas is definitely bringing their best team in a number of years, since at least 2015. So we'll see. Ethan Malone says, what's with the talk of the flu outbreak on Alabama's campus? I haven't heard anything on that, to be honest with you. So I would just be speculating, Ethan. Norman Hunt says, I think we will be closer than people think. One of those games where whoever wins may have to come back to win. Early lead for either team will be important and just have to make adjustments to get there. So let's say that Bama wins 38-27. Jason Norden says, how important do you think it is for Pittman to have the experienced head coach on staff with him being a young head coach experience? I think that is always great to have, no matter who you are. I mean, Musselman's got it with Keith Smart. I think it's important for anybody to have a guy with head coaching experience, a guy who's been there, a guy you can relate to, bounce ideas off of. I think it was good for Bielema to have Dan Enos, and I think it's good for Pittman to have Barry Odom. Jason Norton says, how many Arkansas kids have won the Burlsworth Award? The answer is 0. Jason McFadden says, Trey, O or U, over or under on 6 Arkansas penalties this week? I would say over. Road team, hostile environment. I got to go over. I mean, I don't know if they've had under 6 since Texas. Lee Barber says 1-score game in the fourth quarter won't be anything comfortable about it. You're absolutely right on that. Todd Drake says, are we still recruiting Anthony Black? Absolutely they are. They would love to get Anthony Black. Timothy David Long says it'll be a good game as long as Mark Curls and his refs stay away. I was having that same thought. I was having that same thought. I was watching the Texas Tech announcers for the Iowa State-Texas Tech game where they were just they all got suspended. All the not the announcers, but the radio guys. They all got suspended for blasting the refs start to finish, calling them out name by name on the school's radio show, and they all got suspended. And I was thinking the same time, I was like, man, I wonder what Mark Curls is doing right now. Jeremy McCullum says 1 2-point conversion away from being 8-2. Difference between a potential Sugar Bowl appearance and a Music City Bowl. Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. Music City's a good bowl, and that's not a bad bowl at all. Outback is a good bowl, I assume. I haven't been to the Outback, but I assume that's a good one. Donnie A. Butt says Alabama 35, Arkansas 21. Dustin Hoofman says, as a fan, it's great to enjoy the environment around Arkansas sports again. What do you see in the press room and behind the scenes? I mean, it's a lot better and more enjoyable, first of all, covering Sam Pittman because, I mean, he's a normal human. I mean, it's like talking to a normal guy. I mean, he's going to hold stuff back, and he's got to be the head coach of Arkansas, and there's moments where he has to, assert that. But just in general, he's a good guy to talk to, and he's, he'll answer questions honestly, which is refreshing. And, I think most people around the program see that, and it's frustrating to me when people are so critical of this team, like they expect perfection, and they don't remember where Arkansas has been recently. And I get it. We live play to play, game to game. We all have our preseason expectations. Most people were 6, 7 wins or stuff like that. If you're in Arkansas, Vegas had them at 5. But game to game, if they don't win, then it's the worst thing that ever happened. And I get that. I do. Jason Norton says, could basketball team be like Baylor last year? Seems like they had a lot of guys and were all talented. Arkansas's got to put it together better than they've got it right now. They still aren't a cohesive unit, like one unit playing, together. They still, I think a lot of individuals in a lot of cases. And we can kind of see that, when they mix up the lineups. It seems like they're best when they have a lot of returning guys. Although, yesterday they pulled it out without that necessarily being the case. A lot of just want Arkansas to make this a game. Jalen Williams, potentially SEC Player of the Year? Similar to Bama Center who won it last year? I don't know. I have to see some more. Arkansas fans should storm the field at Alabama if the Hogs win. Make them pay the fine. Does Alabama have any fines? Do they storm the field? Probably not, excuse me. By the way, storming the field, I was watching that Baylor game. And first of all, I agree with Lincoln Riley. Dave Aranda should not have called a timeout with 1 second left in a game like that to kick a field goal. I don't care if there was a Big 12 tiebreaker situation or not. Like, it wasn't being decided. Like, if it's being decided right then, okay. But I didn't like that. I thought that was poor sportsmanship. The game is over. You've won. If you wanted the field goal, you should have just taken it when you had it with, a minute 27 left. And, they had the foul. But I didn't agree with that, and I also thought that Lincoln Riley was right that the referee should have assessed a 15-yard penalty for fans storming the field with time on the clock. I agree with that. So I thought it was poor sportsmanship. I understand why he did it, but I still thought it was poor sportsmanship, even though, I understand everybody's like rooting for Baylor to beat OU that's watching this. But, that's kind of how I feel about it. The game was over. The score was decided. You don't get to call a timeout with 1 second left. Players, fans storming the field to kick a field goal. There's still a sportsmanship component. Ready for the Missouri game. My wife bought us some tickets for my birthday. All right. That'll be good. Timothy Wilson. Oh, I'm jumping. Timothy Wilson says Alabama 28, Arkansas 17. Anthony York says ready for the Missouri game. My wife bought us. All right, that. Timothy Wilson said Jerry wouldn't mind writing that check. Wouldn't Bama get fined? He's over here just chewing away at some bone right now. I guess they would get fined if people storm the field. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Justin Starnes says this game will be the Super Bowl of the year for us. We have the opportunity to get the media spin out of control with a win and get the end of the dynasty talk started. It would just be Alabama's not the same Alabama That would be the story more than anything, probably. All right, everybody. I want to thank you for joining us. I want to say thanks to Charlie Potter for joining us from BamaOnline, and appreciate Curtis Wilkerson for his basketball insight. Some point during the show, we've had it linked over here with his stand-up after the Northern Iowa game, so you can watch that. And thank you all for asking your questions, and thanks for the subscribers, of course, all the support that we get for this show. I was just joking with the talking over people and bringing up the negative comments. I know most of them are positive, and I really appreciate the positive comments. And if you haven't left us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, then please take a moment to do that. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Apple Podcasts, or some other service, throw us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.